Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. Discover your life's purpose, reprogram your mind for success, and attract an abundance of paying clients to your business. Now, here's your host, Tom Tenaglia.
Aloha, Empowered Entrepreneur. I am Tom Tenaglia, and you're listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. And in this episode, I want to talk about pricing and retention. So, there's a lot of discussion going on in social media right now about companies that are raising their prices. So membership services, media services, some form of ongoing content delivery platform that these companies are raising their prices and people are leaving the services. And what's to be expected? Because what's interesting is in today's world, gone are the days where we would just save up a certain amount of money, make a purchase, and then save up a certain amount of money and make another purchase, right? There's so many things are membership-based, so many things are subscription-based. And what that does, and we did talk about this before on the show, but what that does is that forces the creator to have to actually continue to produce something of value to prompt the membership, okay? Because when somebody's paying for something on a recurring basis, there needs to be an ongoing amount of value. This can be a problem for like certain software companies even, because they have a core product and do their enhancements over time justify the a regular subscription versus somebody who would save up a lot of money to make a large purchase of a piece of software and then wait a few more years and then upgrade to another version. They're getting so much value and they just had to save up, whatever it was, whether a few $100s or whatnot. And so you could take the same disposable income and apply that to the next purchase. Well, you can't do that anymore because you have to be the buyer has to be very cognizant as to what where their money's going and are they getting value out of the thing they're paying for. So what's interesting is there are services where if I had locked in pricing, right, I would be less likely to cancel it. And even if I wasn't using it. So if I was paying a monthly fee and no matter how many times they raise the price, I'm paying the same monthly fee, I'm less likely to cancel it. There are a handful of services where I would have that kind of model and I would be the buyer, and there were only a few, and only after quite a number of years did I end up canceling them. And there are quite a number that I still have, some that I use, and the vast majority of them, I locked in the pricing because of a potential use for it down the line that I could see, and I'm still paying that particular pricing on it. However, if they continued to raise the rate, and they were rolling that rate into what I would have to pay, which some of these content services and membership services are doing, I would actually reconsider my choice to continue to carry that subscription, right? So, and that happens, and there were a few of them, and I'm like, okay, this one now, so I started already looking for alternatives on some of these other ones, because what I was paying when I first got the subscription to what I'm paying now, there was even an online software tool for certain things. And I'm like, the rate just keeps changing. I'm like, it's reaching that critical point where now I got to assess, is there an alternative? And if there is, what's my transition plan? And now the effort to transition off of that system to another system is worth it because of the cost savings versus the keeping me just locked in at a certain rate based on what I had previously paid. This is actually pretty common in certain models online, and I could get into more specific discussion with it. But depending on, if a client came to me and they said, here's my business model, I would bring up the specific examples related to their particular model that they would want to consider. Like there's one where there was a product that was a piece of software, but it wasn't hosted. It was a product you would download. And they said, all right, back when I first became their customer, they had a different product, and they had a much cheaper rate, and you got so much more for it. And I'm like, this is a perfect deal. Even if I don't use this product every year, I just use it a couple of times. It's going to be great. And then they raised all those rates actually to a point where it was 4 to 5 times as much for that same package I got. And they did keep me on the renewal rate from the pricing I had locked in at that time. But what they did was they released another product, and they said, well, now you got to pay, you can get a discount for the first year, but after that, you got to pay that current price for that current product. And I'm looking at it going, but in comparison to the product, the whole gamut of stuff I got with this other product, I'm getting so much less for almost the same price. And now I'm paying twice as much for the thing that I use, for the other product that I use when I have so much more value. And I'm going, I don't want to pay twice as much for effectively, a thing that comes with a lot of stuff and then another bolt-on that's actually quite small, because they raise their prices at a magnitude 3 to 4 times. And what I'm seeing is the price I paid before as the current price for that second bolt-on. And I'm like, so I emailed them, and they were kind of resistant to doing anything. And I was like, okay, do I want to negotiate this and explain to them where I think their marketing is kind of awry? I mean, I did that before, and the people actually said, you know what, we're going to give you 50% off or whatever it was for the life of your subscription because you explained this to us from a marketing. Like, I actually reached out and I helped another company. They were open to helping or being having a discussion. And this happened before, and I said, I have this podcast, I'm doing this. I don't even know if I told them all the details, but I basically said that I help people with these marketing strategies. And here would be things I would want to say that I said, even if you don't do this, I would strongly suggest you test this other model from this model, even if for a small period of time, because all of my marketing background tells me that this actually may help conversions and it may help retention. And you need to see if it works for your audience. I had given them so much advice that company actually gave me, I think it was 50% off for the lifetime of my subscription. Now, this newer one, I didn't even sense that there was an appetite for a discussion. And I was like, forget it. I'll just go in and I'll cancel. And I went to cancel, and it asked me to truly confirm, here's all the stuff I'm going to lose, yada, yada, yada. And then it gave me an option to take 30% off of my recurring subscription. Now, I don't know what would have happened if I'd clicked no to that. Would it have offered me 50? Would it have not? I don't know. But I clicked yes. And I clicked yes because I said, this is pretty much, even though my first year I got 60% off and it brought it down to a reasonable price, 30% is still right on the edge for me. I'm going to be reevaluating, do I want to keep that subscription or not? Right? Because it's still 3 to 4 times higher than the equivalent of what I would have gotten with their other product. So I'm constantly reevaluating, what do I want to keep? What do I want to let go of? And I just said, all right, I'll do 30% because then I can further evaluate, am I going to use this product or not? And if I'm not going to use it, then there's more likely that I'm going to go in and say I don't want it, and then we'll see if it gives me an option. The flow of, hey, I already have 30% off, it might not give me another option because I had accepted one. I'm very curious if their initial save the sale process would have given me a higher percentage if I had said no to the first offer. I don't know. They're making the assumption that price was the objection. Here's what's funny thing is, in that case, it was. So by making that offer, they were making the assumption price was the objection. But they weren't willing to do it over email. See, here's the interesting thing. If their support team had offered it, heck, even if their support team had offered 25%, they might, I wouldn't have offered 20. I probably would have offered 30 because I think 20 was too low. 30 would have been a decent amount. I probably would have had the Save Our Sale at 40, and I would have had the support team, so 40, and then if they click no again, 50, and then that's the last offer. And then, that's what I would have done if I was designing this process. And then I would have said the support team offer 30%. And because then the support team could have actually saved the sale. They could have looked like heroes. They could have looked like they listened to the customer and that they understood the customer's perspective. And that, they would say, yeah, you know what? You're a loyal customer. You have a rate from a long time ago. And they could have said it, maybe it isn't, cool that he's like, that here we release a new product, and the reason why, the benefits from before you're not getting, and it looks like it's doubling the price for very little improvement. If they had recognized that, because otherwise, what am I doing? On the second product, I'm paying the retail rate. I'm paying the rate of somebody who only has that product and only has it at its initial base feature set. So on the second product, I look like a brand new customer. It doesn't take into account my loyalty at all. Okay, so like this, so if they had said, okay, here we'll take into account your loyalty. Yeah, you got a 1 year at the discount, but and they had entertained that, they could have probably gotten me to agree to a percentage over email that would have even been less than their closed sale, and their support would have actually it would have left a much more positive experience. And instead, what they did, and I disagree with this approach, they were trying to compare the amount I was paying for the combined in comparison to their raised rate that they had on the website, saying, well, given what we're selling it for now, when you combine it, you're saving a ton of money. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I'm basically trying to say to them, is my loyalty worth anything? And they weren't hearing it. And I could have gone back and restated it, and I could have had a conversation. See, when you're in conversation with a software company and they truly understand your perspective, there's a connection. There's a connection that's made, and basically you're able to help them. Like I was able to help that other company. And I said, you know what? Okay, I get it. Okay, that it doesn't do this. Now, see, this is in a niche and in a business model where these types of large percentages discounts are actually very, very common. Okay, so what I was asking for wasn't crazy. I don't like the idea of first year you get so many percentage off. I can't tell you the number of offers that I said no to. There's some that I take, but I this one didn't say. It said 60% off, but it didn't say first year. It didn't tell me it was only 1 year until I bought it. Okay. But most of the time, if they say it's the first year discount only, most of the time I don't do that offer, because it's a attraction play, and they're not taking into account retention. So I usually don't do those offers. I usually go, if you lock in now, you lock in the rate, you have it for life as long as you keep the subscription. There's a greater chance that that's going to hold. There were other podcasts where I recorded about working with companies where it's like, hey, I've been with you guys since you started, and now you're changing your whole pricing model, and you're telling me that what I had, where I had all these extra features, you're taking them away. I'm like, that doesn't work. And then I stopped doing business with them, another company, right? So keeping in mind the intricacies of pricing. So what did raising the rates do? It starts getting people to have to manage cost even more, and it starts getting them to evaluate, are there alternatives? See, it's interesting because a lot of businesses, there's some of these marketers that are really good. They come out with a business idea by improving things that are out there already, charge less for it, or work with a marketplace to do a lifetime offer for a limited time. And they acquire all these customers, and people transition over. There are lifetime subscriptions that I have that were from my looking for alternatives to companies that were raising price and weren't providing equal or better value as a result of to justify that price. I get price increases, operating expenses have to be managed. I get it. And raise your rate for the newer customers. Reward those that are already, if you can sustain it operationally. Because you got to know, you got to figure out, hey, for every existing customer who's paying this price hike, how many customers are you losing? Are you losing any? And is price the reason why those people are leaving? Right? So I just know from my own buying strategies, there are things that if I have a locked in rate, I'm probably holding on to that subscription at least for a lot longer than I normally would. And then what they do is they go from, oh, I don't need to worry about it, it's locked in, to, oh, like if it's somebody who's raising the rate, it's, okay, now I got to start looking for alternatives. Do I use this enough? Are they adding new features? Is it the same product as it was before when I was paying hundreds of dollars less? And what's the value justification on it? Then the cost play and everything else. And that's basically what we're getting into. So as you're pricing your stuff, see, if you do services, so you don't have subscriptions, but you have services, I do think that raising your rates a reasonable percentage each year or twice a year, depending on your business model, is another way of doing it, because you can still say, hey, if now's the right time, then become my client now, because my rate's going to go up because I raise them every year. Well, why? Because operating expenses go up, and cost of living goes up, right? So there is a need to raise rates. The question is, in a subscription model specifically, what do you do with the people paying the existing subscription? And all of a sudden, once you trip over that value, first of all, are they getting more value for the subscription? Is it justifying the price increase? Forget about operating expenses. Your customer is looking at it from the customer's perspective. What are they getting, right? And then is it keeping them away? What's the opportunity cost? Is it keeping them away from buying some other things they might want to buy, right? So, and really getting into then, okay, where are they crossing in the range of do they really need it? Can they do without it? Is there an alternative, that comes into factoring that in, right? So there is a way to stay maintained with operating expenses, right? And it's just also taking care of your customers. I think that if somebody raises the rate and you have, say, a high-end offer, I think it's okay to communicate, hey, I raise my rates, once or twice a year. Pick which is it, once or twice a year. Don't tell them once or twice a year. And then, and so if this is something, we're coming around that time where the prices are going to go up, because we have to, obviously, prices go up everywhere. I have to increase my operating expenses and everything. The operating expenses increase, so I have to continue to pay for them. So, it's a reason for people to want to lock in, that particular rate. And then even in that situation, if somebody started the sales conversation and we were going through the sales process, not where they said no and they came back later, that's different. If they started the discussion and we went through we're going through the sales process and the rates increased mid-sales discussion, I give them the rate that it was when we started the discussion. Okay? I may tell them ahead of time, hey, we're actually about to increase the rates. As long as we're having a discussion that's moving toward the sale and that's what we're doing here, then we'll honor this other rate. If they go, no, this isn't right for me, this isn't the right time, whatever, and they leave, the moment they come back, because they often do, or at least they think about it, and then they realize, well, wait a minute, I'm going to be paying more. Well, yeah, you are, right? So it actually gives them a little bit of a locked-in rate from the perspective of just getting on the phone with you. So if you're doing that, so anyway, just consider the customer experience of going through a price increase and what a customer now has to decide in given the experience of everything that they also are doing. That will help you a lot with retention. And we just talked about one aspect of retention, and that's just looking at price. There's so many other things we can do. I believe I have a few other episodes on retention in the podcast. And this is just because I was hearing people equate subscriber loss to price increase. And I don't know the data of these companies to know if that's true or not. I just know that, well, yeah, it's possible that is happening and that their increase isn't being justified, based on the value that they're supposedly providing to customers. Because from a customer perspective, most of the time you're not going to be able to raise a price simply on operating expenses alone, unless you in a subscription model, right? So anyway, consider price in everything that you do from a customer's perspective, and also make sure that you are able to actually grow your business and sustain your business operationally. Okay, that is important. I'm not saying not to do that. What I'm saying is, in the course of what's right for your business, also consider the experience of the customer. And, acquiring customers and retaining customers, we've talked about this time and time again, that often those are two different processes within a business. And you got to think about what's the implications of your acquiring process to the implications of your retaining process. And what's the handoff between acquiring and retaining? What's the experience of the customer from acquiring and retaining, right? These are all things that are important, because unless you want to be in the business of like burn and churn, as they say, right, where you're just constantly acquiring new customers, unless you want to do that, the retention aspects are so important. So really, really think about what's going to retain these customers as a result of this process. Okay, so consider that and use that to grow your business. If you want help, support at empoweredentrepreneursshow.com. We'll set up a time. We'll see what we can do to help you. And with that, aloha, hui ho. I'll talk with you again.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show.